It's the Cold Beer Surf Club.
Well, thanks for coming down, Sage.
Yeah.
It's cool. I've known you for 20 plus years probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Growing up doing NSSAs, and we mentioned Janice and Gayleen and those days. Lots of fun. So we're stoked to have you on the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm super stoked, especially this is new for you. Like, I think being friends for so long and being on tour together and amateur careers, like you mentioned, there's always that, you know, what's next, or, you know, what are we doing with our lives as we get older, and super stoked to be able to come on here and chat with my friend and catch up, and very nostalgic being back in the WSL building, and super excited.
For sure. I know it's interesting. We're actually at really, when I was thinking about driving down, I was like, wow, we're actually at really similar points in our lives. We got married like a month apart and kind of got out of competing at a similar time. And then when I was thinking about what do I want to talk to Sage about, and I listened to your podcast with Dave, and I was like, damn, kind of haven't seen a whole lot of like what Sage is up to for a while. So I thought it'd be cool to just kind of pick your brain and see where you're at. And I've been always really impressed with your ability to, like, you've had a really long surf career, and probably for like I would imagine being a woman, like it's even harder to have like a really long surf career, because at some point you want to get married, you want to have kids, and that makes it a whole another layer of challenges of being an athlete that we don't have to deal with in the same way. I guess there's some way we have to, but yeah. So where did you decide like to kind of segue into this next chapter of your life? I feel like COVID kind of threw everything for a wrench, right?
Yeah, definitely. Man, there's a lot there.
Yeah. It was like 20 questions.
It was great. It's great. It's great for me to think about it. When I came in this morning and saw you, I was like, I don't think I've done an interview properly in probably 2 years since not being on tour. And something that made me feel super comfortable about coming and just talking and thinking about everything is feeling you have been going through the same kind of transitions, and feeling like you would be able to understand the different dynamics that go into, you know, competing on tour full time forever, to then going, okay, what's next? For me, gosh, what have I been doing? I got married, like you said, met the love of my life. I think.
Congrats.
Thank you. To you too. I think forever I was so focused on competing in that fast-paced lifestyle, and just having competitive goals or career goals, and that being the focus, and then meeting someone where those focuses are able to shift and change, and seeing a natural ability to want to pursue time with someone and create a life together. And I think with Daniel, he's just so easy to love. Like, he's such an amazing person, and he also is an athlete, and he plays Major League Baseball. And I think for me, being able to just have that natural connection, and being able to see like what it takes to meet goals, and working out and eating healthy, and also like finding those happy places outside of sport. Like, Daniel loves surfing so much, and sometimes I'm a little like, I'm not jealous, but I wish I had that secondary thing right now that I'm just like, I desire all the time. Like, surfing and competing was that for me always. Like, I didn't have to question like why I woke up in the morning. It was like, where's good to surf? What boards can I try? What can I do? For Daniel, outside of baseball, he's like, let's go get the best waves. Like, where's good? And I think the past 2 years I've been more unmotivated to surf at certain times, because I'm like, I'm not surfing for anything. Like, there's no heat for me to like win, or there's no board that's going to make a difference for me. And out of love, I've just been going out and surfing with him, and being like, it probably hit me like a year ago where I was like, I just love surfing. Like, wait, I don't need to like compete. I don't need to show anyone. Like, I just like can have fun doing that. And he's helped me a lot with that. So in short, I've been surfing a lot. Still have maintained great sponsorships. I think, like you said, as a female, there's these different allocations of time that we have to have, because, you know, if we want to get married, like, and I'm interested to hear like what you think, but planning a wedding is a lot. if you have a wedding planner, the more you use them, the more you pay for them. And so I think that exercised a crazy different part of my brain. I'm like, as an athlete, like most stuff was like done for me, essentially, is like, okay, the tour schedule, like here's our 10 events, 2-week windows. That's like it. For a wedding, you're like, oh, if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. And we're not going to have a wedding. And so, just exercising like different parts of my brain. Like, I don't know, for you and Sierra getting married, was that different for you, or did you have a lot of help, or?
I mean, we did it together. My parents helped, and we had a really good wedding planner. Actually, she was amazing. So Caitlin helped us a ton, and it was fun, like doing it together. We actually, for the most part, I thought did a pretty good job of like, okay, you feel that way about this. I feel this way about that. Like, okay, where's the compromise? Okay, you like that's more in your wheelhouse. So it was cool. It was a nice exercise to go through. But yeah, there's so much you said and so much I want to talk to you about. But like that idea of being an athlete is kind of funny for a while. It's really easy. You always have an excuse to not do something, I feel like, right? Like I have this contest coming up. I don't need to, return that.
Surf is good. Sorry, not going to make good. Christmas. Got to do it for the career.
Professionals at blowing everything off. So, I love what you said though about like falling in love with surfing. And I think to me, like that's sort of the goal of this podcast is like, what does surfing mean to all of us? And I love that there's so many different walks of life that surf and takes enjoyment in the sport that we all love. And it brings a lot of different people together, and hopefully more and more people, from different parts of the world and different cultures and different beliefs. And so that's rad that Daniel's been able to kind of bring that. I've always had that sort of with my dad because he loved to surf so much. So, and I've always loved to surf. Like that was something I always felt really fortunate, like from a kid, kind of whether I was competing or not, like surfing was what I wanted to do. But I totally feel that now. And when you were saying that, I was like, God, I've had these moments where I'm like, I don't even care. Like, do I have new boards, whatever. I'm like, I have these boards in the garage for 2 years. Like I'll just ride that. And, so it's kind of a strange transition to like, every single day why you're going surfing.
Yes.
So then you're like, why am I going surfing today?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I found that space really interesting over the last 2 years, because I realized I was like, okay, like this will be 2024's third year not on tour. First year, I definitely was just having a hard time finding motivation or like this deep desire. And I think I was presented with all these other opportunities at the beginning, like, oh, do you want to start an athletic brand? Okay, we should do this. Oh, do you want to start like this company, or why don't you do this? And my gut instinct was like, Sage, like I just kept telling myself, like, take the space to just like take a breath and realize it's okay to feel sad or kind of like mourn not having that competitive side of yourself anymore in that way on tour, like at the highest level. Like trust that like some time off, like allow life to present what your next like pursuit or desire is. Don't try and create it and make it happen just because you live in this fast-paced world. And, it's that generation of having like endless opportunity. Like you could be a vlogger, you could be like a YouTuber, you could be a model, actress. Like there's just all this opportunity, which is amazing. But in everything that I have done over my life, like I've always tried to stay true to myself and the person, that I want to be or become. And a lot of that is just like healthy, great relationships, like positive people, doing and creating things that are good and that encourage me to be my best self, or my friends, their best people, like healthy habits. And these are all things that actually take time. And again, it's like that fast-paced nature, like do more, be more, like do this, like always feeling grabbed in other directions and being like, wait a second, like how you garden. Like if I want to go out and I want to like garden and sow seeds, and that process takes like 3 to 6 months, like that's what it takes. Like it's not an overnight thing. And so kind of just learning to slow down this past 2 years has been something really special for me. I'm like, some of those like clickbaity Instagram things of like, if you find success in your 40s and your 50s, and like having those references have actually been super inspiring, because it's like you're more a truer version of yourself than when you find success in a space, than just like faking it and making everyone online think like, oh yeah, like I'm happy 24/7. I'm like, I look this way 24/7, like all those things. And so the last 2 years has been a lot of like personal introspect, and again, like falling in love. That's like also another thing, is like, I think as a female on tour, like for dating, being engaged and now married to another high level athlete, like someone has to sacrifice time. For me, realizing that generally everything was about me and my timing, realizing like, no, this person deserves like sacrifice because I want to see a future with this person. And Daniel would be so mad at me. He'd be like, don't give up on this, or don't like take away from that for me. But now we're just so thankful because our relationship got to build in such a healthy and deep way, instead of like me being on tour, him being in baseball, seeing each other maybe like accumulation of like 4 months out of the year together, and then not really getting to know the person, has been a fun process. So yeah, I think something along the way too is being able to maintain my sponsors, and I just feel so lucky that they all still see the value in my life and what I represent. And I mean, how do you feel? We were represented by the same agency, like Wasserman, and just that communication with companies of like, okay, well, a company's always kind of like, well, what are you going to bring me in this relationship also, for us to like pursue you? But I feel like your sponsors like have continued to like really love who you are outside of surfing, or not even surfing, outside of competing.
Yeah, no, that's rad. I mean, I think that just kind of is, and I listened to what you're talking about with Dave too. And I mean, just your ability to always like work with the brands and work with people that, you know, it's like a mutual thing. And I think those are always the best sponsorships that you get into, or like any relationship, right? You know, it's like a two-way thing. If it's all one-sided, it usually tends to, if you have a friend that you're always the one who's reaching out always, it's kind of, it never really lasts too long or something. And probably vice versa too. I mean, you've probably been on both sides of it. So, but you know, I feel like the relationships in your life that are always just like natural and easy, you know, like I haven't seen you in years, and I was just excited to talk to you and catch up on life, you know, cause we used to a lot. So yeah, I mean, I think that what you've said, and, you know, you've stayed true to who you are and your interests, and like being the person you want to be. And I think that sometimes that can be hard because especially in today's day and age, you always see on Instagram, there's like Nathan Florence is at some other crazy slab getting stand-up tubes, and then he's at this other one, and I'm like, I've been home for like a month, kind of cruising, like I don't know, what am I doing? And it's easy to get pulled in different directions, I think, now, and feel like you need to do more always. And I think that's probably part of why, you know, I feel fortunate to maybe not be in that, but you know, like even sometimes still kind of feeling like, oh, I could be doing more, and like comparing yourself to other people, and like this sort of like pitfall of our society these days is like Instagram's rad, and it's a great platform, but also like you have to almost put the blinders on a little bit and stay in your lane. So I feel like, you know, you've been able to do that, and people, I think, respect that. And it seems, because I try to do the same thing, that, you know, when you meet the right brands or the right people, you know, that kind of gravitates towards you and builds healthy relationships. So that's cool. And I mean, I think with Daniel too, like it's so unique to kind of find someone, you know, like maybe in your shoes, like, you know, kind of what it takes to be an athlete. And I don't think a lot of people can really understand that. So I think it could make being in a relationship hard because it does take an element of selfishness.
I should say two selfish people.
But it's almost like perfect, you know, like you know, in a way, because you could both see like, okay, this is like what it takes for us to do well. So you have a mutual respect for that. And, and then now, like with you stepping away from competition, like, you know, the support that feels good to support someone in that. So I'm sure he really appreciates that too. Yeah,
there's definitely that correlation that comes naturally. And I think if it wasn't Daniel, I don't know how the dynamic would necessarily be. Like I said, he's so easy to love. Like he has such a bold presence and a commitment about him, but his personality is much more laid back and observant. And like when he's in his space of baseball or when he's in his space of training, like he's very serious. And then he's able to kind of switch that off and be able to surf and be stoked about boards. And he started shaping the last couple years, and we built a shaping bay at our house, and being able to just see his like creativity in that. And then us being able to like go ride his boards together and not necessarily pick up a thruster high performance tour board, but going to like a twin fin or just these different types of surfing. I think it's been one of the most like amazing things also about the last 2 years is being able to just like experience surfing in a different way, a different style. Like the clips that I like to watch, it's not necessarily like the webcast all the time, and it's more what's on YouTube and random raw footage day at Rincon, like an hour and a half. Like, okay, let's watch that this morning. Like Daniel loves YouTube, and so I had no idea that there was this whole other world. Like when you say Nathan Florence, like chasing these waves, I'm like, wait, this person, like he films all this stuff, like, and does these things. Like people watch this. Wait, there's like that many views. Like what is this world? So
crazy.
It's a whole different world. And so it's just, that's been like the fun side outside of competing is like watching YouTube videos. And then there's some videos where I look at them like, oh my gosh, like why did these people do this? Like, so it's just, it's a really cool balance with Daniel, because like I said, he has this love for surfing outside of baseball. And so it keeps me in the water. He's never like, even though I have to sacrifice time, go to these like places. I've seen more of America with Daniel than my entire life, which I thought was super cool. I'm always like, go USA, I'm American. And I'm like, wow, I've spent a lot of time overseas. And then going to all these places, I've really got to see a different side of American culture. So, so like I don't have to, I sacrifice time, but it's like that perfect balance of he still loves to surf. We still get in the water. But I definitely like have had fun traveling around America. Like every new stadium that I would go to, like I love chicken tenders. So I started like a rate chicken tenders list in my own journal or whatever. And it's just like fun things like that that I would never think that I would think was great.
Was there like one moment in particular for you where you felt like, did you know at a certain point that you were kind of done competing, or was it kind of like a slow transition? I don't know, because you did some QSs kind of like afterwards.
I dabbled a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I kind of had, I knew sort of like, I'm sort of done.
Yeah. When I saw you surf your last event at the US Open, I was like, what? I was like, he's so good. He can beat all these guys on tour still. And then at the same time, I was like, but it's not about that. Like, you are such an incredibly gifted surfer and like so pleasant to watch that I was like, it would be so much cooler to be able to like see that unlocked for you. And like, you know, like create surf movies or cool partnerships or relationships. Like your value isn't placed like on your world tour ranking. And so I think for me, like the COVID year, I think being on tour and then it getting canceled for an entire year, and then coming back, starting completely different, having to be in quarantines and bubbles and being limited of where we could go or when we can surf. And I think as a surfer's rep too, at the time, you know, you were also, and so we got to hear a lot about changes that were going to be happening, and everything just felt like, to me, not like great. And I understood like with COVID, okay, everyone's feeling these like transitions or upwellings of like what is normal or not. But it's like, I think about all the years I was on tour and I was like, they were like pure bliss, like just like glory. Like it's a generation that we didn't have equal pay. We maybe had 1 year, we had 5 events on tour for the women, subpar waves, like not good. And then we had amazing new ownership that came in and like saw the women's value and our personalities and our competitive drive is something that should be of equal value to the men. and got to be a part of that and see like real money and then location addition, like Lowers and Fiji and Honolulu back. And like, I got to be a part of all of that. So for me, when I was 30, it was 3 years ago, 30 or 29 or 30 was the COVID year. And then for me, just like my best friend got pregnant. That's who I always traveled with. The families that I got to always stay with, the places that we got to experience and the way we did was different. I think for me being on tour, like I always had my best friend or friends around, and that made being away from home like extra okay or like fun. And then having that taken away sort of thing, not being able to experience a place, like I said, it changing, the cut coming, all of those things, I was just like, if I fall off, do I really want to start in like this weird little amateur kind of series and then get to like the Challenger series, which was always the QS for me. And then it just was like a system that I just was like, it just doesn't feel right to me. But it took me a little bit to like really, I wish I had more a definitive moment. I did say I want to win one more contest and then retire. And I guess when I said win, like I didn't realize that like a 1,000 at Morro Bay would be like sufficient for me to be like, oh, that was my big win. Like that was like, okay, I feel good now. But it was after that event to where I was like, that's what I said I would do and I did it. And I think I'm done. And that was kind of like, yeah, the big thing. And I think this past year, maybe last month with Pismo going on in Morro Bay, like I was tempted. I was like, ooh, wrote Brian Robbins like on the computer, like, Brian, I might do the event. Like,
can I even get in?
Right.
Like, that's how I feel if I ever wanted to do a contest again. I'm like, how do I even get in?
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, the waiting period for Pismo was like a whole week. And I'm like, there's so many things in my life now. We got Daniel and I have our 2 dogs. Like we bought our house together. A whole week's a long time just to like do an event. Whereas like now I'm like, I want to go on a surf trip for a week and I want to surf like 6 to 8 hours and I want to get a suntan and I want to feel like surfed out. Like, do I want to go like wait around for a heat in 25 minutes and, you know, that sort of thing? And I'm like, no. And so I feel really confident in that space now. And that feels really good. Cause I do like just going on surf trips now where the waves are good and like surfing till I can't surf anymore. And then I'm just like super stoked.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool that you felt that closure after
the
Morro Bay contest. Cause I feel like that is the one, like the hardest transition is kind of like knowing, okay, when, and then making sure you're feeling like you're not really leaving stuff on the table. Yes. But I think the same time though, it's like you always are leaving something on the table, right? Like, I mean, I'd imagine that's why Kelly's still competing at 50 years old. He's like, I can still do well. Yeah. Like I can still win a contest. Right. Right. And I knew that like when I was leaving, I was like, I know that in my mind, I was like, if I put my mind towards it, I can still do well. Yeah. But I don't think that I was really in that headspace of like wanting to, because I always felt on the tour, you had to be pretty like one track minded, like really focused on what you're doing because the level is so high. And if you're not, you're kind of going to get smoked and you're not going to do very well. So like I felt like I'd been pretty damn focused for like 10 years of my life, maybe more. I mean, when you think about it, maybe like all the way back to NSSA days, like winning, you know, trying to win contests every year. So I was like very ready to, I think, start like a new chapter and, you know, not be, you kind of talk about like not like almost like guilt associated to like not waking up and surfing and doing what you know you need to do well at the next event. Yeah. Because towards like the last year or two, I'd be like, oh, I kind of feel like guilty if I don't do that, or like, oh, I always feel like I needed to be doing something else. Yeah. Even if it was like I totally deserved to have like 5 days of just goofing off with my wife or whatever. You know, it's so strange. But
did you ever get the feeling like I think my like little like devil's advocate like shoulder person is like, oh, you just like the people that just like surrender to like, oh, life's just good, like you don't need to do anything or contribute, or like, oh, you're just like, you don't have a strong enough will to like keep going, or like I would get like this little thing of like, oh yeah, all the people that don't do anything, like this is the feeling they succumb to. But it's like the people that are doing stuff, like they're the ones that are like strong and like I don't know. Did you ever feel that? Like you feel like you're just surrendering to like
being weak or something?
Yeah, like our Santa Barbara 805 mentality, like of just cruising. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, a little bit, but I also think I could override that by the fact that I knew I like committed to it for so many years to get to where I wanted to. Yeah. To where I kind of felt like I'd earned that choice.
Like you gave that because you gave credit to it because you're where credit was deserved.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I did 10 years.
Yeah. And I knew that I'd given, I think if I felt like I never gave it my all, that I would have been making the wrong decision. But I knew that for years I'd given it like my best effort and like my focus. So I think that,
I would say like your cup's full, like in that way. Like you're like, I did everything.
Totally. And I think that made it feel okay. Like obviously winning a world title's the pinnacle, right? And neither of us achieved that. But I think I always felt like I probably didn't, and maybe this is probably wrong. And like I should have listened to myself. If I could now, I'd tell myself that I'm wrong. But like I never really thought I was quite good enough to win a world title. Mm-hmm. But I always felt like I could finish in the top 5 if I like worked hard and had a good year. So when I did that, I felt like, okay, I can hang my hat on that. Yeah. You know, when Adriano won a world title, I was like really inspired by that because he would, you know, outwardly probably say that he wasn't the most like rounded, talented, you know, couldn't do the craziest shit on tour, but like he knew he could outwork and outcompete and just like pure grit his way to the top. You know, he believed that. So I was really inspired by that.
Isn't that crazy? Like I think about that sometimes and I'm like, but how many events like in surfing, like how many events do you see that you go, okay, you saw someone surfing the best, like they were the best in all the morning sessions. They look so good. All their online clips look good, all this stuff, but they're not the winner. Like there's these other people that would win. And like, that was something that was so inspiring to me about surfing. It was like, yeah, that little bit of like self-doubt of like, oh, I'm really good, but I'm not this good is like surfing would give the opportunity to like the underdogs or, you know, that would, I don't know, it would all come together for them or you in your career or me at times in my career. Like I could definitely resonate with like, yeah, I felt good enough to be there and to stay there. And then I would have moments to where, I'll never win a world title. Like, you know, and then thinking about it, and you're like, well, no, now watching surfing as a whole, like anybody can. Like, because there's so many things that like come into play. It's like the rhythm of the ocean, or some people have it. Sometimes like people don't. Like, this is like such a stupid surfing reference, but I remember like, and now I look at it and I've been watching like the WSL heats and stuff now. I think we were chatting about it like a lot more than when we weren't on tour. But like, remember Gabriel Medina was like, I felt like you beat him at Narrabeen, right?
I beat Itala at
Itala.
Narrabeen. Yeah.
It was like, Itala was like, anytime he went out, I was like, there's no way this person's like not going to make it for some reason. It's like they had that rhythm or like those years on tour. And it's like, you go out, you beat them in that event. It's like, oh no, they're unstoppable. Or then even seeing now, like, no, they're not the person that's like winning every time. And like, I just like, I trip out on that in competing. I'm like, some people just get on this like tear, this rhythm. And then sometimes you're out of it and it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I just trip out on that dynamic. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I brought it up, but. It's
so interesting in our sport though, because 100%, I think you're right. And not always, the person who's surfing the best that day doesn't always win.
Yeah.
And you know, I think you can lose your mind thinking about it in surfing because there's definitely like this cosmic or whatever spirituality you believe in. Like there's just times when you go out and like you are connected with the ocean and like you can't put a foot wrong. Yeah. You paddle over there and the wave comes to you.
And the wave comes.
You go over there and some rip and like the wave of the day comes to you. Yeah. Or, you know, then there's other times when you're like, I know this wave so well. And I am going to sit here and this and that and all these, you know, all this shit. And it's like, you don't even get away.
Nothing happens.
Yeah. You can't do anything right. And it's such, I don't know if other sports are like that. I don't do too many other sports, but I'd imagine that they're not quite like surfing in that way.
Yeah. I think in talking about this, like it reminds me of deciding not to compete anymore. It's kind of like you've experienced that natural like kind of flow state or that natural just like in rhythm. And for me, like that last year was the complete opposite. It was like everything was like pressing against me to keep doing it. And to where in the past, like I fell off tour 3 times and got back on. And like that, there was like a healthy pursuit there, like still that unction to like get after it and like, what's it going to take? And then that kind of last year, it was like there was such a big resistance. And it's like, there's something there to pursue, like how you're saying, the second stage of life and like hobbies and habits and people and where we spend our time and family, like all those things. Like, I don't know, like on the spiritual side, like I feel like God designed us to be able to have it all, you know, like not just the one track and stay to that, like be open and diverse to like, yeah, what life kind of like has for us. And yeah, it's crazy. Time flies.
It's so wild. Yeah. No, I definitely felt that. That was part of the reason that I like kind of knew maybe I was making the right decision. Literally like the last 10 events I did, I couldn't catch a wave.
Yeah.
Like, I would go out and the ocean
like the
would
ocean
go flat.
turned off.
Yeah. Like every single time.
Yeah.
Like the waves would be pumping. I'd go out and like couldn't catch a fucking wave. I was like, what is going on? Usually I always get good waves,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And even like the other day I did the Rincon Classic and like my second heat, the waves were fun and I caught one wave and it just went flat. I needed like a 3 to make the heat. And I was like, I can't even stand up right now.
You know what's weird is that happened to me my last year.
That's what you were saying. That's what made me think of that. And it was kind of like, maybe in a weird way. And there's people like Micro would think I'm insane because he was coaching me. I'm like, he's like, dude, you're a tripper. But I don't know. Like I sort of still believe sometimes in this like weird, but like energetic something that's going on where like life's just nudging you in a different direction.
Yeah, because like, I don't know, when you experience things like that, like so evident where things are just like easy or they just sort of happen and it's like easy to make the decision or it's easy to, say yes to this or say no to that. Like, yeah, when you're just like your door is constantly being shut all the time in that space, like you're like, okay, well, where are the open doors or like what direction should I go? And that's like how I felt. Like I remember coming out of quarantine in Australia, like so excited, so fit, like all this stuff. And then at Newcastle, I think I got like maybe a 3 total. Like every event after that, it was like, yeah, just the waves shut off. Like I wasn't in the right spot. And it was like how hard I would try and be like, okay, like listen to this advice. Okay, how much do I listen to Tom here? Like how much do I need to trust my own instinct here? Okay, like trust this. It was just like so much. And then to go out and not be like, this playing field sucks. Like I'm at the best wave in the world and like I can't even get a wave. Like this is crazy. To that point, like being like, okay, what else is there? Cause this is, if you can't catch a wave in a heat, like you're definitely not going to make it. But
part of it's, I guess, probably us, but no, I do think that there's something to that. And I think like following your heart and staying true to that. And like, I definitely felt that coming off when I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I was like, do I want to like commit back to that or like, where am I going? Kind of like in listening to what feels right. Like in here was, I think, a big part of my transition and definitely what you said, like I think, as things change through your life, like it's really easy to look back and say, oh, it was better then. But like my experience of the tour was like similar to yours. Like I loved it and it was my childhood dream and like surfing against my heroes and going to the best place in the world. Like I wouldn't trade any of that for a second. And then when so much changed so fast and I think I was already like at that point in my career where I could go maybe two different directions. Yeah. And like, okay, I felt like the new system, if you're at our stage in our life where maybe you're like looking for a little bit more than chasing that, really fast pace, like it felt more like a hamster wheel. Because when I didn't make the cut, it was like literally like I was super bummed. And then the next day I was like, holy shit, I have to like fly to Snapper tomorrow and like try to do this if I'm going to keep doing it. Right. And I always told myself like, if I didn't requalify on the CT, like I didn't do the QS once the whole time I was on the tour.
I remember you always saying
I know you said you always did it. And I was like the opposite. I was like, there's no way I can do both of these well. So I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to focus on the CT. Like if I fall off, then I'll decide if I'm going to do the QS. And I always,
and you stayed on, did you say 6 years straight?
I think it was 7 years, like 6 seasons, by the time COVID. Dang. But I towards the end, I was like, if I fall off, I'm not going to do the QS. I was like, I'll just be done. But then it was like, oh, it's Snapper. And I love that wave. So I'll just go. And then I got a 5th. And then even though I was kind of like still in limbo, I was like, well, now I need to do the rest of them. Right. And I did so bad. And, but I know that that feeling of like being on like a hamster wheel of like, okay, if I don't make it there, then I'm here. And then if you don't make that, then you're on the the regional thing and going to like Pismo and Cocoa Beach. And I was just like, there's no way. Like I don't think I have what it takes to like mentally do that.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe that's being lazy, or you could see that as being weak, but I think
it's
just kind of weird when you had it like that. Okay.
Yeah. It's a major transition. I remember going to, Pismo, and it was the first time. This was the first year off tour.
No disrespect to Pismo, actually.
No,
too,
I love
the waves there look really fun.
That's where I go. I love Pismo and I love Morro Bay. I mean, we grew up
Central
surfing
Coast is so rad.
Our NSSA days. Like we spent weekends there. Like it's so beautiful. I feel like it's the same aesthetic as like home, like hills and mountains and ocean and rawness. But I remember going to Pismo, and I think I made the quarters, which I was stoked about. And I had Sawyer in my heat, and I like had no idea like who these younger girls were or anything. And I remember going out and being like, okay, like, yeah, I'm going to wait for a good wave. So kind of just like let her go or whatever. She gets like a 7. I was like, oh, okay, wow. Okay. That was like a good wave. Okay, know what that looks like now. And I'm like, okay, I want to open up with like a 7 or the same. Wait with priority. I'm like, oh, kind of like at 1. And I'm like, no, let her go. She gets like a 9.5 or something. And then I saw myself, I'm like, okay, I'm comboed by like a 16-year-old. I'm like, I don't even know who this like girl is or whatever. So like come in, I'm like dragging my head down, and I'm like, oh, Sage, like tell her good job, or whatever. And went and told her good job. I went back, looked at the little like webcast replay, and I watched her surf, and I was like, Jesus Christ, like this girl's so good. And I was like, what? Like these girls are super good. And then I got all fired up, went to Morro Bay, won that. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I don't want to compete with these girls anymore in that sense, because I don't have the same, mentality of like what it takes, and being like, it's okay. Like, they're just like fresh eyed, and this is like, they got fresh goals and they can grind this out. And it's been super cool to see those girls like Sawyer. And I love how Alyssa surfs, and this kind of, Pickles. And I remember surfing Pickles on the Central Coast, and maybe she was like 14. And I remember it's the funniest story when surfing, and that we were using the same filmer, and she's just a grom. And he was like, oh, do you mind if like this girl comes, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, no worries. And we like come in from surfing, and we had gotten like meat pies or something the day before. And she's like, oh, I can't even do an Australian accent. Like, Sage, what pie did you get? And I was like, I don't know. I got the chicken curry or whatever. She's like, why would you get the chicken curry? You got to get a meat pie, like steak, and just like fully sounded off on me. And I remember being like, who the heck is this confident grom? Like, why are you telling me, like, I'm like double your age, like what meat pie I should have? And she just had like so much confidence. And I like loved her. Like, we surfed a ton after, but then now seeing what she's doing on tour, and I'm like, I didn't have that confidence. Like, I would never tell someone what meat pie they should eat and how like shitty of a call a curry pie was. But like, that's like this next generation that I also don't see myself as. Like, I don't have that like crazy confidence to go throw myself over like a 10-foot wave at pipe. And I'm okay with it. I'm like, there's so many other styles of surfing, like I said, twin fins and things that I'm having a really good time like experiencing. But the next generation mentality, like it feels good to have been a part of the transition generation where we went from kind of like smaller good waves to then surfing really serious critical waves. I'll never actually forget Margaret River. The last year's on tour was like huge. And I showed up and I was like, there's no way we're on. There's like people in like 9.0s getting blown out the back by like offshore winds. Yeah. And being like, no, there's no way we're not on, like casually going up, and then being like, oh, the comp's on, women are on. And I was like one of the 3 heats left in the women to run. Maybe even it was 2 heats, and it was like the loser round. And I remember being like, what the hell? Like, I don't even have a big enough board to go out there. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk to Jesse and Renato. Like, I just like, this is nuts. Like, I can't go out there. Like, Courtney came in, snap board. Like, she was just like, Courtney excited, like freaking out. And the reason I bring it up is because I remember Jesse and Renato sharing with me, like, Sage, you're the generation that's going to bridge the gap between women surfing small, good waves to big waves. And we're going to put you guys out there right now. because yes, it is giant, but it's the best conditions that you can have. The wind's going to die down. Like, this is it. And like, you're ultimately like, it's the year that you guys got to go and do it. And I remember going out and having a whole new outlook and perspective on it. And I won my heat and did super well. And I just remember being like, gosh, like, yeah, there has to be a generation to show the girls like this is normal. And at a young age, when you see something being normal or it is what it is, it makes it a lot easier instead of trying to like be different, like knowing something and be different. So I think for these next girls, like big waves and that's like normal for them. Like this type of like gun-ho personality, mentality, like Sierra Kerr, like all that. So I bring it up because I feel fortunate for those years on tour. And like, you know, we're talking about like cup is full. And then now I could sit back and enjoy watching these girls, you know, surf and be like stoked for them. I'm not like, I never wanted to be that older like girl that was on tour that was like bitter and like, you know, just like hate the WSL or the ASP or hate all the men, like hate all this. Like I loved every part of it, you know, and like I want to have that same love for the stuff outside of it too.
That's rad. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. You were really there to span sort of like that arc for the women surfing of where you were surfing. Like, I mean, when we grew up, like probably even before you were on tour, like all the whatever women's events there were, like if it went onshore at Chopes or like was shitty somewhere, it was like, okay, cool, send the girls out.
Yeah. That was legit. Like that's not even like just like a thrown around thing. Like that was how it was.
100%. Like literally like it would turn to shit and they'd be like, okay, cool, the women's is on, like the men's are done for the day. You know, to whereas now, like our last couple of years on tour, like there were days.
Did we get better waves than you guys?
Yeah, no, like there was for sure like a year or two there where it was like the waves were like there'd be a waiting period for like, well, the waiting periods got shorter, right? So we had less time, like 12 days or whatever. And they'd kind of look at the forecast and you'd be like, okay, there's like a really sick, like head high, clean day. Yeah. And like it would be the best day of the waiting period and the women's would run all day. And then there'd be like some big stormy shitty day and it's like, okay, cool, the men's are on.
So sorry. I think it's funny.
And the girls the women, I like probably totally.
Girls, women.
Girls and women.
I get lit up all the time.
I mean, I call
online.
myself a boy still, so I don't feel that bad about it. But anyways, the women would be ripping and serving really well. And it was pretty crazy to sort of be on tour, I guess, at that same time and like see the level of women surfing really go up super quickly. And to your point, like the younger women and I mean the younger men now too, like, but I'd say more drastic. I mean, there's been like some really good men surfers for a long time that are young, but now like the young women are freaking gnarly.
I feel like I feel like the young women there's like this crazy fast track to just being like 5 levels like higher, just with like maneuvers, tricks, airs, size waves. Like it's like across like 5 different categories or types of surfing. They excel like substantially in all of those versus like 1 or 2 or, which is like, it's just like really fun to watch. I will say like maybe I wish that we had a wave pool when we were younger because like I went to Waco for the first time last year and just surfing, like I just signed up for a public session. Daniel was playing the Rangers in Dallas and I was like, oh, Waco's only an hour and a half away. Like I'm just going to go.
That's epic.
And I was like, after surfing there for a whole day, I felt so much better. And I'm like, a lot of these girls can just like repetitively try different things. And it's this crazy untapped like resource. Cause it's like, I mean, how many times I'd paddle out to C Street and it's like so fat. I don't have a lip. Like I can't try anything but a carve or a cutback at certain times to where like, oh, maybe if I had like, more opportunity to try different maneuvers.
I mean, not just like that the wave wasn't giving you the opportunity, but the competitiveness in a lineup.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's like a whole other topic of conversation. I'm sure like equality within a lineup, just like, I don't think lineups are probably meant to be equal from, age and male, female, like whatever. It's just a shit show. Right. And so like, especially like if you're not super competitive and like, there's like a bunch of crusty old local guys out, like I'd imagine, I know as like a kid, boy, it was hard enough. And like, then I think about like, oh my God, if you're like sort of timid and like there's some guy who's like, oh, there's a girl, like whatever, I'll just burn her. Like, like to get those opportunities to get better at surfing from a young age, male or female, is really hard. Yeah. And so like that is where wave pools, I think you're spot on. Like everyone now, like the young kids are getting so much opportunity from such a young age.
Such a good
like,
point.
In an uncontested lineup. And it's such a huge tool. Yeah. Because when you're young, you learn so easily. Yeah. Like imagine if you're
just like a sponge.
Totally.
Absorb
imagine
everything.
if you had someone sitting there like helping you learn airs at 12 years old, like you probably would have been doing crazy airs.
And I think the important thing within that, like being our age and seeing that, is it's like as a competitor, like it's not looking at that and going like, I need to be better than those girls. Like I need to do a bigger air. Like I need to do this. It was for me, it's like identifying like, no, my generation or my time on tour was utilized at the highest level that it could be. I did the best that I could. I had the best time. And then now going, okay, now it's these girls' opportunity in their time. And I think sometimes like people that are competitive, like you have this tick where it is like, you always got to chase a result. You always have to be better. And at some point we're going to get old. Your body changes. Like you can't maintain that level. And who knows if that's like, even, who knows if that's even like what you're meant to do. So I think that's a part of like finding this piece now in myself and my life or your life of going, I'm great. Like life is good. Like not being on tour, not competing and being able to like enjoy that for what it is. So like watching these girls, watching the wave pools, like I just don't even know what's going to happen in 20 years. Like it's just going to be like crazy what people do. But it's all good.
No, I mean, it must be, I'm sure it feels really good to have been a part of that whole, I mean, the women just really getting better and stepping up it's really awesome to watch. Yeah. And I'm sure it was fun being on tour. Well, now that you're sort of like comfortable in that space of like, all right, I'm leaving this chapter behind. Like where, what are you most excited about? And like, what are you working on these days? Do you have anything that's like, that we should know about? Yeah.
I think now like being engaged and married and just the whole process we've been talking about, being comfortable being off tour and what that looks like. I definitely, like I said, I love going on surf trips for like a week and just surfing great new waves and being able to experience that. So I definitely have some places, some bucket list spots. Like I really want to go to Chile and Canada. And actually with DB, I was able to go to Norway and surf like the Lofoten Islands. And I wanted to talk to you about this because I feel like you love cold water and kind of that. You don't like cold water?
I've never done a trip to super cold water.
You haven't?
Like I think home's cold.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang. Okay.
I need to do it though. I need to rip the band.
Maybe some like off-grid trips or something that you've been on. But like that opened my eyes to something just so exciting. Like all the tour spots we've been to, but I'm like being up like in the Arctic Circle and like surfing these really cool waves. And like I hate admitting it, but I didn't know, but I had soup that had whale in it and like trying different foods and things like that. And up there it was like supposedly the whole whale thing, it was like humane and like this is what they do and the people and the Nordics and like all of this stuff. And like my background or the majority of my ethnicity is Norwegian. And so there was a part of like connection there that I had to like self-talk myself because I'm like, they're such beautiful and like incredible animals.
My ancestors were whalers.
They were whalers? Okay.
Yes.
So this is okay to talk about.
We won't cancel you.
And so like experiencing those things. So I really want to continue to document surfing, culture. I still have amazing sponsors that support me in that way. And so it's for me right now, I'm just really discovering like what that documentation looks like. I don't want to have like a vlog where I have a GoPro 3 feet in my space and I'm making everyone try and fall in love with my personality. And like, I've been a product my whole life because of the clothing I wear, what I participate in. And I want to be able to showcase, yes, myself in these elements, but like, what do these places have to offer? Like, and it's nothing no one hasn't done. It's just, I think, staying true to, like I said, like healthy choices, the goodness in people, the desires that people have, like, and just being able to document that more. I've like dabbled in like YouTube ideas, but like, I mean, you did it. Did you still have Fat Boy Surf Camp?
It kind of just as like I don't know, elusive thing. But yeah, I mean, I still eat a lot of food and like to surf, so I guess so, yeah.
But it's
I
like,
always like have ideas of doing something with it, and I never really have. But maybe it's like one of those things that I keep pushing out. But.
Right. And that's kind of like how I feel too, is like I want to document, I want to share my life, but like in a healthy way. I don't want it to just be an ad. I don't want it just to be to please someone or make everything just look like amazing, but like focus, like I said, on the good things in life and still travel. It's hard when we live in such a beautiful place. Like I remember just before I signed with Ruka, like 6 or 7 years ago, and I had this big interview. I didn't have a major sponsor for like 4 or 5 years. And I went into the office and it was like Pat, Brian, there was like 2 other people, Brophy and these people. And I was like, dang, like I went into one of these kind of meetings, lunches with Billabong like a year or something before and never got the call up after the lunch or whatever. So I was like, okay, yeah, definitely didn't want to sponsor me or whatever. And I remember Pat actually referencing Parker. And he was like, so Sage, he was like, tell me like all you guys from up there, like you're the most like talented like surfers and everything. And he's like, but you guys just kind of like get lost up there. Like, it's like you have all the talent in the world, but like sometimes you kind of get lost. And that's such like a Pat Tenori thing where I was like, wait, do I need to like defend myself and be like, no, I want to work hard, or like I want to live in Costa Mesa and like be down here 24/7 and like give them like an answer of like, yeah, why getting lost up there isn't the best thing in the world. And I was like, fuck it. Like, because we live in the best place. And it's like, why would I want to come to Costa Mesa? Like, why wouldn't I want to surf like the best points? And like our surf culture is so rooted in like true surf history and like beautiful surfing. And like, it's like the best of like every world up there. And I just told him that truthfully. And I was like, I don't know if I'll come to Costa Mesa. Like, I don't know if I'll like, I love working out and I love the gym. And I was like, really to me, like it's about the people being together and stuff. And I remember that was like a big thing, stepping out on a limb and just like being honest about why I don't want to leave where we live. And
just owning it.
And he gave me a 4-year contract, and like I ended up not being with them for that long because of the whole COVID price cut and that, but I always just really respected like his rawness and realness, and then also just being like, yeah, Sage, just like be yourself. Like who cares if you get paid or you don't? Like at the end of the day, like what really matters. And so right now I'm really trying to stay true to that, like not just get a job or like, how can I keep my sponsors stoked? And I just truly believe in like the goodness pursuit and sharing that. So I did a little like women's surf network show that was really cool. I think I found I had a lot of fun being in a studio. Like when you asked me to come in and do this, I was like, with them, they're new and that's a newer network. And so there's a lot of like moving parts. But TV production is pretty rad. And like, so I don't know in the future if maybe a more serious show could be made, kind of like travel-esque sort of thing. I don't know.
No, totally. I mean, like going back to a few things back that Ian said in that, like just the idea, and that's kind of why we started this, is like I didn't have something coming off tour where I was like, I didn't really know exactly like what I was going to do. I just knew that I still wanted to surf for a living and like I always felt like when I was on the tour, it was hard to like embrace sort of all the things that I loved about surfing. Mm-hmm. And that because I was like very one track mind, but I was like, I love food. Like I love surfing. I love the ocean. Like I love the idea of trying to protect the ocean, even though it's like really hard to try to figure out how you make that happen and make a difference. I love the people. I love surfboards. I love like, there's so much the art around it. And I love like, I think what really intrigues me is like all these different microcosms of surf culture that exist all around the world. And being on tour, like you obviously get a taste of those, but I've gotten probably a bigger taste of those, like not being at a contest, because
Right.
Like we kind of get fluffed when we're at a contest. Like people show up, they're fired up on you. They're like, oh yeah, let's party. Oh, check this out, that. Like, but then you're like, okay, well I got to like surf my heat. So I got to stay focused.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the most, like I went to South Korea and met these South Korean surfers and got to learn about what surfing means to them and their little microcosm there. And it was so cool. Or like going to Italy and like meeting these people that are so super passionate about surfing, or like, sounds like you had that experience in Norway. So I agree. Like I've always kind of grappled with this idea of like, how do I kind of like bundle up all these things that I love and like figure out a way to do that for a living. Yeah. So maybe we'll have to start something.
Right. But
yeah, I just
think about like what it looks like. Cause it's definitely like what space of like documentation does this fit in, you know, that you can make it what you want and really like have people experience what you're experiencing. Totally. You know, and that sense of connection. And I think that I was so stoked when I saw that you were doing this podcast. Like so stoked. You were the perfect person. Like you're going to get so many amazing people to talk to, and like can't wait to see those continued conversations and like even you opening up about your life and the things that matter. And super cool. You're great at talking, Con.
That's fun. You too. I love listening to your one with Dave. Like, I don't know, I've known you for a long time, but just to hear you on that, I was like, wow, Sage is really well spoken. And you present yourself really well, which is hard. It's easier said than done. I know. So it's fun. But yeah, I
hermit a lot.
You have been lately. I never see you around.
I know. People say, they're like, I text you all the time. You don't text back. Like, I'm like, I hate technology. But like, I hate technology and I understand its purpose. So it's like finding the balance in it. And like, definitely like that's something that I work on constantly is like, I think I've found success in creating content very easily with like Alana, my best friend, or like Willie, or like we could just like go and have a good time and document like our lifestyle and then just post it online and then just get back to being in the moment and like doing that. And then I found like with Alana having her first baby and just like life changing, like it's harder just to like keep that authentic posting. And I just like hate the just like dry post that you just gotta get it out there and be consistent and power it out. It just feels so heartless. So constantly trying to like pursue ways to like feel connection to being able to post and like people, you know, ultimately. That's been like a new phase. Like being off tour, I was always like, oh, I'm so legit on tour. Like whatever I post, like sure it will inspire someone, or like this is the experience, like for the girls that want to be on tour, like this is what you do, or this is what you get to do. And like that felt very natural. And then not having like one specific thing of like why I'm posting has been hard to like be motivated a little bit. But then I'm like, I'm working with all these cool brands. And I was like, if they're stoked that I'm surfing and like around, like I should post and like feel legit about that.
For sure. I mean, I think I go back to like the fact that you are still, whether you're on tour or off tour, like you're pursuing something that you're passionate about and finding a way to make a living out of it. And I think to me, that was always my goal growing up is I love surfing so much. I was like, well, how do I do this for a job instead of having to go get some other job that then like lets me surf, you know? Right.
I almost thought about getting a real job.
Really?
Have you thought about it?
Yeah, for sure. No, I have. And like, I think that was something good or bad.
It's not a real job. I shouldn't discredit it, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like being on tour or like competing growing up, I always kind of knew like if this ends tomorrow, like I felt confident that I'd learned enough and I'd done enough school and I had good people around me, like luckily my parents and stuff. Yeah. To where I knew I could go find opportunity to like earn a living and make money and, you know, maybe be successful in some other way. And in a way that was good, but like in a way I almost felt like it was a hindrance because like then I would see people like, you know, a lot of the like Jadson's like, no fucking way. This is it. Like I am going to do this and I am going to be successful with this because this is like making a difference, not only for me, but like for my whole family. Right. And the, like, I really think that the grit and determination, the passion that comes out of that is hard to replicate. Yeah. In a competitive environment. Like I love to surf, but like, you know, I didn't have that. Like my parents weren't relying on me. Yeah. I knew I could go do something else and there was opportunity. Yeah. And so I think that there's something unique that comes out of that, like just really determination. And everything comes with a cost, right? Like there's something probably to that too that holds you back. But
would you be a
I don't know where I was going with that, but
no, it's great. I just want you to know it's like super inspiring for me to have this conversation too, because, you know, like we said early on, it's very similar in like age and times in our career. So it's like everything that you're saying, whether it's for the podcast or not, like is encouraging, inspiring for me. But I'm curious of, I say a real job, but if you like sponsor aside, surfing aside, like today, if you were to choose a job that you would go and apply for and do, like, what would it be?
I think that, I mean, I don't know. Like I get intrigued and interested by lots of things, but I think like, cause my dad's a contractor,
right.
And when I was a kid, I like all I wanted to be was a builder.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably go into building in some way, shape or form. Like I just like, I like it and I enjoy it and I like making something better. And, you know, I think it sort of lends maybe a little bit to like the lifestyle I like to live too. And Santa Barbara's a good place to do that. And I don't know whether it's like fixing things up or like when I just remodeled our bathroom and I enjoyed it. Even though there's like miserable parts about it, it's still fun.
We need a bathroom renovated.
Oh, when I say
bad.
I did it, it's probably like I did the demo and some of the drywall and some of the rough framing, but I worked with someone. My dad luckily knows lots of really awesome carpenters and stuff. So I got to hire one of them who's a legend and we sorted it together. But like I really enjoy learning something new. And I think that's something also that has always made me feel comfortable is like that I have I always like to pursue something new. And I like that. Learning mentality.
It's not as scary. Or like you can't do it. Like, oh, I can't do this. You've always kind of felt like, oh, I can do that or I can do this or like not intimidated by that process.
So I knew like if I got really hurt and I couldn't surf, like that's okay. I love learning enough to where I think I could go learn how to do something else. My grandpa always inspired me in that way. Like he did all this different shit over his life and was interested in a lot of things. So, you know, I think there's that age old saying of like you know, being a jack of many trades and not a master of any or something, you know, I'm not getting it right.
I like that one.
I was
that's
always
how it is.
like,
I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of getting like paranoid that I'm like that though. I'm like, I'm into all this shit. Am I good at any of it?
You have to work.
Am I really good at any of it?
You have to work really hard not to be your parents or your grandparents. Like if you don't want to be, like, thankfully we have great parents, like grandparents and things, but I honestly, there's so many things that I see that I do, especially now that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just like my dad. Like my dad is like a cosmic spiritual, like just this funny person.
Yeah, your dad's epic.
And there's just like these,
and your mom.
There's these so many things that I just am like, I've rolled my eyes over like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. Like, Dad, don't do that. Or, don't say this or like all this. And then I do stuff and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just like him. Like, that is crazy. I'll call my brother and be like, Noah, like I just did this. I'm like Dad. And he was like, no, you're not or whatever. And just those different stages in life. So like when you say that, you're like, maybe I am just like that. Like not a master of one. And I'm like, who's to say that's wrong? You know, like our own that's like could be like the best thing ever. But yeah, I've just always been curious. I'm like, can I be a waitress? Like, can I try it? Like, just like for the experience of it. And I think I resonate with how you said, like, I've never been intimidated to like start over, or try something new, or like, cause if you're like, oh, I can learn from this, like there's something here, like whether it helps with like social skills or like I grew up in a coffee shop for 10 years growing up in Ojai. And it's like, I dedicated a lot of like being social or being able to interact with strangers well, or like just like having an openness to like people from that. And like my mom had no idea that that would have been the product of what came out of growing up in a coffee shop. And that is something that I've felt useful like in my life today. And like there are parts Daniel and I joke about, like maybe we'll open a shop, like a little surf shop, or like I love to grow flowers. Like flowers are so much easier than food. Like great job. Like so
I always think they're easier.
They're just like, and so like we had thought about maybe like now we're back up in Ojai where I'm from, and like, oh, maybe a little hybrid like surf shop, flower shop, like vintage shop, like coffee, like, and trying to just kind of like feel out that dream, you know, a little bit. And then there's the part of me that's like, no, just like have an employer, be a waitress, see how you do. Like, I'm so curious of like the whole tip system. Like, I don't know why I'm so interested in this. Like, people get tips for like, if you're a better waitress or not, or like, you know, just, yeah, it's just interesting. And then And that might just be my like fantasy in my head of like, I don't know, just doing something completely different.
Chris Malloy told me he had a really good, when we were having this conversation, he was like, usually if you do something that like you and your friends think is rad, and I was just thinking about that when you're saying this idea for a shop, like people will like it. And if you do it for yourself and like the reasons that you think it's rad, like there's probably going to be other people that want to flock to it.
That will think it's cool too.
That sounds super cool. Yeah. What was the job that did you think about doing or getting?
Oh, just my little waitress job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, literally just a little waitress job. Like just something having like, an employer. I would never go into like retail. I suck at folding. I'm a terrible organizer. And like, I just, And so I thought like, oh yeah, waitressing. I love food. And generally people are great. And I'm like, I feel like I like disassociating, like taking things personal or not. And I think that like being a waitress it's like, you're there to like serve and cater and like you represent the restaurant or the business, but like you don't have to like, if you get mean people or they're bossy or they complain about things, like it's not towards you. And so I like being able to facilitate people to like their need. So it's like so even if they're like grumpy and like this or that, or I run into someone, I'm like always happy to like try and like shift their perspective of like, oh, being nice to them or how can I help you? And like treating them like in a different way than they're acting so that they could act like better or nicer or whatever. So I just feel like that is such a deep level to look at being like a waitress. But I was like, oh, that would be fun. And I think I realized like how much I miss at the coffee shop when I was younger, like having a place every day that had like camaraderie, all walks of life, kind of like what you're talking about, like totally different people, like people coming in, like some having a good day, some having a bad day, some people that like come and get their morning coffee at 5:30 like every day. Then like I kind of like miss that. And I think maybe the tour was kind of like that for a long time, because it was like that consistency. But
lots of people having good days and bad days on the tour.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of like Daniel and I's like bigger dream.
That sounds cool. I'm 2 thumbs up. You should do it. Thanks. Go for it.
Daniel, like it's really fun. Like our honeymoon, we went to New Zealand and Fiji, and he's goofy foot, and it's like I've been to both places, but never surfed raglan, and it's so fun because like I like for some reason like I don't always think to go into like every local surf shop. It's like because I'm sponsored or like I have gear, but like Daniel likes to go and check out like the local surf shops and like get a shirt and like check out like the little subculture. And that's been something that's like blown my mind too. Like there's all these like cool shops and like these people that hang around and that love surfing. Like you want to know how the waves are good? Like, oh, I don't have to go to Surfland. I'll go in the surf shop and they'll be like, tide's this. Like at Raglan, like the community was so cool. Like Manu Bay likes this swell or it's going to be good. And like reconnected like Billy Stearman from there. Like, hey, Billy, like where should we go surf? And like getting all these like, I don't know, just like cool spots to then go adventure to. But being able to like I bought, or Daniel bought it for me, but like a surf shop tee and like how much I like get stoked wearing it around here. We have like an air freshener that's like from there, like in the car. And like kind of like you're talking like those subcultures in surfing or these little micro parts of it that just make me like stoked and happy. And like I know for both of us like that would be something like if people left our shop stoked or knew somewhere else to go surf or something, I'd be stoked on that.
Like I think it's really important to support those really local like community driven shops or stores or businesses because at the end of the day I think that those are the people that make the world go round, and they in some way, shape, or form have given like those of us who have been fortunate enough to be pro surfers, kind of like our job in a way. And my brother told me something cool one time. He was like, Jamie Thomas told him Parker wanted to get something, and he was like, "Oh, I'll hit those guys up. Like they'll probably give it to me for free." And Jamie was like, "Dude, fucking buy it." And he was like, "Oh," he's like, "If you like something and like the people are doing something rad, like you should support it."
Yeah.
Like you getting it for free isn't going to help it. And like you just going out and supporting it's going to do more than anything for them.
Right.
And, and that was cool.
And maybe when you say that, like Daniel's parents had a bike shop for 33 years out in Tennessee, and it was like all mountain bikes in there, but I don't even pronounce it right. Appalach Mountain Range, Appalachia, I don't know. It's out in Tennessee, but like a really big biking community. And it's like, that's where Daniel gets that, support local mentality and like feeling that you're talking about. And like his dad, like he was at the bike shop from like 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., like checking every bike, everything, and like that dedication. And so it's like, yeah, when you're buying something local, like you're supporting that work ethic, like that commitment, that level of like passion for, for him, it was bikes. And so, yeah, it makes sense when we like talk about it and you're like, oh yeah, like I'm like the convenience of Amazon, like I gotta stop. Like Amazon, like I'm pretty sure Australia like doesn't even allow it like in their country because they want you to continue to buy local and support businesses in that way. And I always thought, oh yeah, like Amazon is just whatever. And I was like, I looked at my like Amazon report from like 2021, 22, 23. My like 2023 Amazon orders is outrageous. And I had to like call myself out on it and be like, go get your ass in the car, go to the shops you like, get the stuff there. Like it doesn't matter if Amazon can ship it to you up in Ojai in a day, like go and get it. Like this is just this like easy mentality, this overnight, sort of thing. Like it's not what life's about. Sort of say. So I'm sorry for any brand that's on Amazon. I'm not hating on that, but it's just, yeah, it's that local kind of vibe. And like, I think in the surf industry too, that's like a hot topic. Everyone's talking about like all the surf brands are getting bought by like these huge umbrella companies and, where's the core surf at? Like who can we support? And so I feel like there's like a cool kind of space to just like love surfing, and like Daniel makes his t-shirts and designs them, and it just was like, I'm gonna post him online and like see. He like sold out in a day. Rad. And it's like he didn't do that to like make money, but he just has always loved. His sister's like a super rad artist in North Carolina, and like they just have this like creative side that it's just an outlet, and it's cool to see him not expect anything and then people be super stoked on it. So I think, yeah, that's like, it's an interesting part in surf, like to see, I don't know, the brands that are kind of started or, who gravitates towards what.
Totally. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a weird time in the industry. I don't know. Yeah. I don't even feel like I'm plugged into like what's going on sometimes, but yeah. It is like, it's crazy to think how different it is now for kids coming up compared to how we had it when we were, like maybe I feel like I kind of still caught some of like the best years of the surf industry and, and how fortunate you are to like have experienced that. And like, I mean, it set, like, I know for me, like it set up my whole life to like be able to live the life that I've always dreamed of living. And now, if you're a kid coming up, like, I don't know, does that path exist? Like, it's definitely way smaller than it was when we were coming up, like there were so many of us who were able to make like a really good living surfing, and so grateful for that. So it'd be nice to see it. Like, I don't know. There's like good and bad to all of it, but just at least for that, like more opportunity to be there for people to like, to live this life, and connect with people. 'Cause surfing, I feel like has given us so much amazing, not just financially, but just experience and connections and relationships and traveling and just so much rad shit that it's like, I just hope kids can experience that. Like I always, how can we help with that? So I don't know.
Yeah. How can we help the younger generation experience that? Yeah. And I think, just staying focused on the things in life that matter, that like are like fulfilling and giving. And again, like stuff takes time, and like the process of reaching goals, like if it takes 3 months, if it takes 6 months, if it takes a year, like if you don't have this like momentary, like blissful, like satisfaction or like praise or appreciation from like the world that like what you're doing is like, amazing in this, like know that the grind, like there's a great process in there, like your local coffee shops, like those connections that you make, like your everyday people, like there's beauty within that. It doesn't have to have like a big shiny bow on it and like this just like huge moment. I don't know. Like that's, yeah, it's just like enjoying the process and being present. I think like that was like a really big word. And I think like a lot of people can talk about it, but just like being super present and like being where you're at and like, yeah, enjoying that and like being bored. Like that's something I'm like, I don't want to like lose being bored, like feeling like I always need to be stimulated. Like, okay, I tell myself, I'm like, Sage, okay, you got like 6 like Netflix, Hulu, Max Plus, or like all these things, live cable. I'm like a sucker for like local news, like have all these things, watching that on my phone, on my computer. I'm like, seriously, on 3 things? Like, can you just focus on like one? And like if a show gets boring for a second, don't grab your phone and then go on Instagram or Zillow or whatever, like the weather app, or like just watch the show and be bored. And so I think like that's something with like the next generation too, is like you don't always have to be like crazy stimulated. Like let's just like, I remember back like NSSA days or like being on the beach in a wetsuit all day and like being freezing. And like you would just be freezing. Like it's like we didn't have all these crazy changing towels or fancy cars with heaters. Like I just have to be cold. And like sometimes I remember like, oh, that was like resilient building. Like that was like a part of like childhood. And I see these kids at lowers like flying by on e-bikes. And don't get me wrong, I love my I love my electric bike, but it's like just some things like just stay a kid, like just like go out and play like in nature and like with dirt and like sticks, like not all these like crazy fancy things, like just be present. And yeah, that's definitely something that I think for like kids, it's like, or like even as parents, like I'm not a parent yet, but I think that's something that I'll like want to value. It's like we'll go on like trips and things and it's like, yeah, it's no phones or like no electric bikes or like no, like we have to like go out and like have 8 hours of the day like at the river and like I don't know, we just gotta like end up seeing like what's fun to do. So like those are like, they sound so like old, but I think they're important.
For sure. I mean, I always, for myself, feel like some of my best thinking or ideas comes like when I'm really quiet in my mind, like present, like you said, and not, you know, like I never think of some great idea when I'm scrolling through Instagram. I just see all this other shit other people are doing. But if I'm like sitting in a car ride, or like on an airplane or in nature, just kind of chilling out, like sometimes I'll have some idea where
just pops in.
Yeah, just pops in.
Yeah.
So I always think that creativity kind of comes from those quiet spaces or the moments in between all the other stuff. Like I never felt creative when I was like working towards something really hard.
Right.
Or maybe I was working in a creative way, but I never came up with something new.
Yeah.
Unless I was kind of sitting around just going, oh, dude, getting lost in your own thoughts.
Right. And like having that moment of like being bored or like you're just like giving space to like other thoughts that could come in or influences like without doing or trying or being and then like always for me, like, you know, like watching, like having that space, being on my own like trajectory or like whatever, and then seeing like an inspiring film or like listening to a podcast or something. It's like a healthy amount of influence. It's a healthy amount of inspiration. And then it's like, okay, then that's over. And then it's like, okay, you can like live out the space of like doing what you got from that, rather than it's like, oh, you watch, you know, a really sick clip or a movie or something. And then 10 minutes later, you watch a really sick, cool clip of this. And then 10 seconds later, you watch like, and so it's like that one like clip or movie or something like doesn't get to hold its value or like the inspiration that it could give you. It's just like overridden by this other one, overridden by this. And then I'm like, I can't even remember what the first one was about. And so I think it like creates this like mental pattern. I was saying like that stimulation of like not sitting and remembering this value or like what was put into that story or that movie and then living it out. It's just like overridden. So yeah, just like I just hope that like kids have just like more space and their parents don't get into like the perfect Instagram mentality of like, yeah, being with this person or this coach or this sponsor or like, you know, just like over the top, like just go have fun with your kids and like go surfing. Like you said, your dad, like he was a big influence in just going surfing for you.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
He just loves
because I would come home from a contest sometimes be like, oh, like, I don't know, am I going to surf today? And he'd be like, let's go surf, come on. And then that froth and that excitement and stoke would always just be like, oh yeah, cool. Why wouldn't I want to do that? And then I would feel that, and it was so refreshing.
Yeah.
So I always love surfing with him and my brother, but like people like that, he doesn't take that one good wave a session for granted.
Right.
We get kind of jaded getting to do it all the time.
The camp host, Christy, she's like she's a camp host at Pitus, and she was up at Foster Park up in Ojai, and I connected with her and her husband Jeff, and they're originally from the East Coast, and they're just like surfers at heart and love the beach. But I'll always remember and I can't remember exactly who she referenced, but they had told her one wave is better than no wave, and I tell myself that every day. One wave is better than no wave. Daniel and I go surfing, and I'm like dragging my feet. My wetsuit's kind of wet. Waves are good. One wave is better than one wave. And I get a wave, and I'm like, I feel so much better. Like, it's so true. So I love little just like theories or little like one-liners that are like, they're just like so true. It makes it so easy. Like, I love just like, I'm like always trying to make decisions or things, and I just love things that are so like definite. Like, yeah, one way is better than no wave. Show up at the beach, shitty. Like I said, the list of all this stuff, but like one way is better than no wave, so get out there. And I go out and I'm like, great. One less like decision I had to make, like that brought goodness into my life. So great. Like, and that's what the ocean does. So it's like those, just like constants in life are really fun to discover. I think right now we're kind of at like our people say midlife, but I don't mean it in like midlife crisis, but it's like middle of our life. Like, whoa. And maybe plus some, like we'll probably live longer than there's some wood.
Make it past 60.
Then 66. I don't love that number. So
hey, that was my number on tour.
Was it? Yeah. No, I knew it was. But like I want to live longer than 66. But
yeah, I know what you mean though. I mean, most of the time I would say like for a lot of people, like 30 is probably where they're maybe figuring out even what they're going to do for like the next 20 years of their life. And I feel like what we've done, we've already lived. Right. I feel like I've lived a whole lifetime already.
Benjamin Button.
I don't know. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of living, which is, it feels good. Like I always wanted to, I don't know, like the old saying of live hard and fast, maybe in an unhealthy way, but like, I maybe wanted to do that, but like not in that way of
just
living
don't
hard
die.
and fast, like doing drugs and being crazy. But like I always wanted to like live hard and do a lot of like as much cool shit as I could do. And that's kind of the goal, I guess.
Yeah. There's so much to experience here. We're so lucky to be able to, still travel and pursue other things. And like, it's kind of the same for everyone else too. Like there's, it's not just us because we're professional surfers or we're on tour. Like everybody has like lots of opportunity to pursue different things. And I think that's really cool. Like people can, if they resonate more with technology or social media or that side, like there's all these different jobs within that space. Like if you want to be more in nature and do that, like there's all these different jobs. You want to travel, like you could do that. Like I think of our parents' generations and I'm like, they didn't even have like the fact of not having a smartphone or like a map. Like I remember the first years on tour, like not having a GPS, or I mean like a phone, like you had a GPS system, you had to pay extra for your rental car and like do it. And sometimes like the service would go out because it was so bad everywhere. You like wouldn't know where you were going. Like that is so crazy, like just that.
How about to pulling out I remember when we were kids and we'd have to pull out the map book. What was it called? Yeah. There's a word for that thing. I don't know. Thomas Guide, I think my parents called it.
Yeah.
And like being in Europe and we'd like drive circles around some city trying
Portugal
to get
or something.
Yeah,
there's
so
roundabouts,
lost.
no street
it's
signs.
So easy now. Well, I think I kind of like to wrap it up with everyone who comes on just with like some advice. And it's funny because you kind of just went into a bunch of advice for people, but maybe like specific things or lessons or advice for like young girls growing up that are like excited to pursue a passion. It could be surfing, it could be something, but I think the life that you've lived like to get you to where you are now has like been sort of based around like something that you've been passionate about and that you pursued and worked out really well. So I don't know if you have any little nuggets for young girls and boys that are coming up. And
I'm like, most of what I say is always long-winded.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, you had a couple really good ones already, but I don't know, just if there's another one that you think is like a good piece of advice.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, there's opportunity within everything. Like, I like what you said, like jack of all trades, like try different things. I think knowing the desire that and like passion that surfing gave me from a early age is like try things, and whatever resonates and like gives you this deep desire that you think about it more than other things, that you're curious about more than other things. Like those are indications that something in life is serious for you. And I think it's so much easier to pursue things that you think about and that you want to be in. So like try different things. Like Daniel and I talk about, like for our kids, like, I don't know, try music, try all different types of sports, football, baseball, surfing, golf, like try things and see which one connects with you, instead of like come from a place of I don't do anything and like which one should I choose and like I'll only do that thing. Like really connect with what you're doing. And it was really cool. I went to a little, like, I can say girl because obviously they're under 18, but like Sophie Simon, her brother's John Simon, and he shapes a lot up in our area, and he's kind of like a up and coming like alternative shaper. And she did this little surf movie for college, and she's taking film, and it was about like that same sort of subculture of like girls versus men, or women versus men, girls versus boys, like out in the lineup, and just like how much more like girls have to work for their waves. And it was super cool to go and see them create this project. And they're under 18, and like Sophie had a heart for like filmmaking, and the other girls like had a heart for surfing. And McKenna Burke, like she got the first scholarship to UCSD for surfing. And so it's like, don't be afraid to like get with a group of friends that all like different things and see what you can create together. Like, don't think that because one other girl is doing better at something, then that means you're not as good. You just might have a different gift or talent. And then collectively, all those gifts and talents like can create something really cool. So for Sophie, she filmmakes. McKenna like went to college, and then Delilah was just this like classic longboard girl from Ventura, and they made something really cool. And so I think for my long-winded answers that I always give, like, know your value and your talent is specific for you, and it will bring great things into your life. And surround yourself around positive, encouraging people. And it's really true. Like if people speak poorly to you and really like discourage you, like don't spend your time there. Like there's tons of beautiful people that have wonderful things to say and encourage, you know. And so that's kind of what I got.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Sage.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Super excited to see everybody that comes on, and so excited to just be a part of it. So feel honored that you chose me to sit in this seat.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to see the rest of it.
What were the best chicken fingers?
Oh, Sierra's favorite food is chicken fingers and French fries. So
Wait,
yeah,
really?
I gotta get the list from you. I better take her. Like literally,
Yeah.
when I'm like, what do you want for dinner? It could be Chick-fil-A. Like
Really?
9
She
out of
loves
10.
it?
And I can kind of cook. I'm like, it almost
You're
hurts
really
my
good.
feelings.
You're like Italian.
I'm like, what about this, this, and that? She's like, I want Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Yeah. Chicken tenders, Dallas, the Texas Ranger Stadium is like crazy cool. And the chicken tenders accompanied by their barbecue sauce is incredible. I mean, I went to places like Columbus, Ohio, Omaha, Nebraska, like Georgia, all these places, and Texas, like their chicken tenders are good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I need to do that. I want to do a Fat Boy Surf Camp tour of Texas.
Yeah.
Just eat barbecue and maybe try to get some waves in
Yeah.
Corpus Christi.
Brisket, all that stuff. Yeah. There's
So
a good
good.
little crew down in Corpus Christi right now too that you
Yeah.
probably connect with.
I got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. So yeah, Texas for the chicken tenders, barbecue sauce if you're a fan.